My daughter's face changed before her voice did. One moment, she stood in my living room with that newlywed glow she wore like a badge, and the next her expression folded in on itself. She had opened my purse only a few seconds earlier, something she'd done 100 times growing up, but this time the sight inside it stole the air right out of her lungs. Rowan froze, her hand hovering above the envelope with my handwriting on the front. Behind her, Owen lingered in the doorway, his arms crossed as though he were guarding the entrance to a conference room rather than my home. He tapped his foot, impatient, as if he had already counted the bills he assumed I would produce. Rowan didn't look at him. Couldn't. Her eyes stayed locked on the envelope like it was something alive. "Mom, why is this here?" she whispered. I didn't answer her right away. I let the stillness press against the three of us, thick enough that even Owen stopped fidgeting. Instead, I pulled out the chair across from her and sat down, feeling the familiar ache pulse through my hip, the same hip that had been throbbing ever since the wedding reception 2 days earlier. Rowan tightened her fingers around the corner of the envelope. "Is this about the wedding?" she asked, and the word wedding felt like a cold hand sliding down my back. Memory dragged me back whether I wanted it to or not. The reception had been loud, too loud, in that way large celebrations always were, where laughter turned into static and music drowned everything human. The venue Rowan chose overlooked the harbor, a place so polished and expensive it practically inhaled money. I'd paid for more of it than I'd ever admit to anyone, including myself. Rowan floated through the crowd in her gown, her smile carefully sculpted, her hand looped around Owen's arm. Every time she passed me, strangers complimented her elegance. No one mentioned who had taken out an emergency loan just to keep the florists from walking out the night before. I'd been stepping aside for a server when my shoe slid across something wet. The world tipped. My hip slammed against the floor so hard my teeth clicked. Pain radiated through me like a struck bell. People nearby gasped. A few paused. Rowan turned. Our eyes met. For 1 second, one short, piercing second, she recognized me, saw me, then she turned away. "We still need to get the family photos," she told the photographer, adjusting her veil. Not a single person helped me up. Not until Mara, a distant cousin with more heart than most relatives combined, rushed over and crouched beside me, whispering gently as she tried to lift me. When I finally stood, leaning heavily on her arm, I dialed Rowan. She looked at her screen, expression flat, and declined the call. The pain I felt in my bones was nothing compared to the quiet crack forming inside my chest. The night after the wedding, I moved slowly around my kitchen, waiting for my phone to light up. It didn't not until a notification pinged from Rowan's social media. Photos of her laughing, spinning, kissing her new husband. A perfect day, she called it. I wasn't in a single picture. My neighbor June stopped by, worry lining her face when she saw how I moved, but Rowan still hadn't called. I told myself she would. She didn't. What did come was a bank alert. The emergency credit card I'd given Rowan, years ago reserved for medical emergencies, had just been used to rent luxury decor for nearly $1,000. The same night she claimed she was staying within budget. The ache in my hip sharpened, but the ache in my chest sharpened more. 2 mornings later, Rowan finally appeared on my porch with rehearsed concern painted across her face. Owen remained in the car, the engine running. "We need to talk to you," she said. "It's important, important. That word again." "We're here because we need help," she said carefully. "Financial help." Her eyes never softened, not once. I studied her for a long moment before finally nodding toward the kitchen. "Come inside," I said. "If we're going to talk, we'll do it properly." Behind her, Owen revved the engine, waiting to collect whatever he assumed I would hand over. He didn't know yet that the purse held far more than money. It held the truth. The truth she had run from her entire life. Rowan settled into the kitchen chair like someone preparing to negotiate a contract rather than speak to her own mother. She folded her hands neatly, chin lifted, her wedding ring catching the morning light. Everything about her posture said she came ready to convince, not to understand. "Mom, listen," she began, softening her tone in a way that felt practiced. "The wedding costs got out of hand. Vendors added fees we didn't expect, and a few payments bounced because they weren't processed correctly, not because of us. We just need a little help until everything stabilizes." She spoke as if I were a bank, as if the decades of supporting her were a line item she could call in at any moment. "And you've always been there for me," she added quickly. "College, therapy, the venue deposit, you've always stepped in." "That's what mothers do." "What mothers do," I repeated quietly. "Exactly," she said, taking my silence as agreement. I watched her carefully. Even now, the exhaustion I felt wasn't anger, just a clear-eyed recognition that this conversation had been coming for years. "Rowan," I said after a long moment, "we need to talk about the wedding." "About what happened?" She immediately waved a hand, dismissive. "Oh, not this again. You slipped. It's fine. You saw me fall," I said. "I didn't," she insisted, though her eyes darted away. "It happened fast. The room was chaotic. You're blowing this way out of proportion." I held her gaze. She looked away again. "And besides," she continued, "your fall kind of disrupted everything." I'm trying not to dwell on it. The sharpness in her voice surprised even her. She crossed her arms defensively. "You helped less than other parents," she muttered. "Owen's parents practically paid for his sister's entire wedding. I paid for your tuition," I reminded her. "Every semester. I paid for therapy when you needed it. I paid the venue deposit." Yes," she cut in, "because that's what you're supposed to do. I never asked to be raised the way you raised me." "You owe me for that too, if we're being honest." For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. She said it so casually, like she had rehearsed the line. And suddenly, everything fell into place. Not because of the fall at the wedding, not because of the money she wanted today, not even because of the credit card she'd drained. No, because this wasn't new Dot, it was a pattern. A long winding pattern I had let continue for far too long. "That's why," she said, leaning forward, "this loan shouldn't be a big deal." I didn't respond. Instead, I reached for my purse and set it between us. Her expression shifted with relief, almost triumph. "I knew you would help," she said, fingers already reaching. She unlatched the flap. Her smile evaporated. She pulled out the cream-colored envelope with her name written on it. "Just one envelope, nothing else. What is this?" She snapped. "Open it," I said. "I asked for money, Mom. I don't need whatever this is." "Open it," I repeated. Her fingers shook as she broke the seal. The letter inside rustled like it carried weight beyond paper. She read the first line slowly, then faster, as if speed could change them. "Stop," she said, voice cracking. "Why are you writing it like this?" "It's the truth," I answered. She kept going, her face paling as she reached the paragraph about her trust account, the one she'd emptied while telling me it was untouched. "You had no right to check that," she burst out. "I had every right," I said. "It was my money until you turned 21. And even after that, honesty would have been enough." She read the last line, lips parting as if she'd been struck. "As of last week, you are no longer in my estate. This is not punishment. It is protection." Rowan stared at me like she no longer recognized the woman sitting across from her. But she had no time to react before her phone vibrated. Owen's message lit up the screen. "Get the money. Don't come back without it." Her face drained of color. And for the first time that morning, Rowan looked afraid. Not of losing me, but of losing what she thought she owned. The letter trembled in Rowan's hands as she tried to steady her breath. "This is revenge," she said finally, her voice sharp enough to cut through the quiet. "You waited until after my wedding to do this. You wanted attention. You always want attention." I didn't flinch. "I wanted you to see me." "Oh, please," she scoffed. "You twist things so you can play the victim. You always make me look like the bad guy." Her voice rose with every sentence, fueled by panic rather than truth. "This is your fault," she continued, gesturing wildly at the papers. "If you had helped more, if you had supported me the way other parents support their kids, none of this would be happening." "Rowan," I said quietly, "I supported you more than you ever realized." She froze for half a second, then slammed the letter back onto the table. "I cannot believe you took me out of your estate. I'm your daughter." "You are," I said softly. "But being my daughter does not entitle you to my life's work." She blinked, stunned, not by the words, but by the fact that I meant them. "You're unbelievable," she whispered. Before I could answer, the front door swung open. Owen stormed in, voice already raised. "What's taking so long? Did you get the money?" Rowan hissed through her teeth. "Not now." He ignored her, turning his glare to me. "She said you're unstable," he snapped. "She said you blow things out of proportion. So stop dragging this out and just sign something." I leaned back in my chair. "I'm not signing anything. You owe her," he shouted. "She told me how much you held her back. You think covering a few things years ago means you can control her?" "Control?" I repeated. I bailed her out. Again and again, quietly, without asking for anything in return. Owen stepped forward, anger flaring. "You're making this hard on purpose. You paid some of the vendors already. You should have known we'd need help. You set us up." His words hung in the air, absurd and desperate. "I paid what I paid to keep Rowan from facing legal trouble," I said calmly. 3 vendors contacted me directly. "I have the emails." Rowan shook her head violently. "No, that never happened." I slid the printed emails across the table. She stared at them, blinking as though the sentences refused to make sense. Owen's jaw tightened. "We still need money. Then find another source," I said. His expression darkened. "We're not leaving without something." And suddenly the air felt heavy, dangerously so. Rowan tugged on his arm. "Owen, stop." He jerked away. "She can't treat us like this." I stood slowly, using the table for support. I wasn't afraid of him, but I refused to be threatened in my own home. Get out, I said. No, he snapped, stepping closer. You don't get to. Enough, I said, reaching for the phone on the counter. Rowan's eyes widened. Mom, what are you doing? Calling the police. You wouldn't, she breathed. You're bluffing, Owen scoffed. But I already had the phone to my ear. When the call connected, Owen froze as though the air had turned to ice around him. Within minutes, a patrol car pulled up outside. Neighbors peeked from behind curtains, whispers drifting across the street. The officers stepped inside. Ma'am, you asked them to leave? I did, I said. Rowan's voice turned shrill. This is ridiculous. She's my mother. We're talking about private things. Sir, ma'am, the officer said firmly, you need to step outside. They resisted for a moment, but the officers guided them toward the door. Rowan shouted something about betrayal. Owen muttered curses under his breath, and then the door closed. Silence spread through the house like warm water. For the first time in years, the silence felt like mine. I walked to my desk, pulled out the trust documents waiting for my signature, and saw June's name on the beneficiary line. A woman who had shown me kindness when my own daughter looked away. I signed the papers slowly, deliberately. My husband's old letter slipped from between the files. His handwriting, steady and familiar, read, Protect yourself if Rowan ever begins to believe the world owes her. I rested my hand on the words, letting them steady me. The next afternoon, Rowan called. I let it ring until the silence returned, and then I finally answered. Rowan didn't bother with greetings. Mom, she snapped the second I picked up. Everyone is talking about what happened. My friends saw the police outside your house. Do you have any idea how humiliating that is for me? Her voice felt sharp enough to slice through the quiet of my kitchen. I had barely slept the night before, not from regret, but from the unfamiliar calm of having finally drawn a boundary I should have established years ago. This isn't about humiliation, I said. It absolutely is. She shot back. People think I forced you to change the trust thanks to you. Owen says you staged everything because you need drama. Drama. That word again. She had reached for it so many times over the years that it had become her shield. Her way of avoiding mirrors. Her way of making my pain sound theatrical when it was simply ignored. Rowan, I said, you're not listening. No, you're not listening. Her voice cracked like a whip. You're ruining my life. You know that, right? You're making things harder for us. You're making me look bad. It isn't my job to protect your image, I replied. Silence washed over the line, heavy and trembling. I could hear her breathing fast, shaky, irritated, not broken, not remorseful, just angry that she no longer had the ground she thought she owned. So that's it? She finally demanded, You're cutting me out? I'm letting go, I said softly. There's a difference. She didn't understand. She couldn't. Letting go wasn't a punishment, it was a release. A quiet declaration that I was done surrendering parts of myself to keep her storms calm. You're making a mistake, she whispered. A huge one. Maybe, I said. But it's mine to make. She hung up without another word. I stared at the screen for a few seconds, then set the phone down. The quiet settled around me like a warm blanket, strange at first, but comforting. The kind of quiet that makes you realize how loud your life has been. For years my world had rotated around her emotions, her crises, her disappointments, her expectations. I had been the net beneath her, always ready to catch the pieces she broke, but never acknowledged. Letting go felt like finally stepping into sunlight after years of choosing shade. A knock sounded on the back door. June stepped inside with a grocery bag. "Came to check on you," she said. "Saw the patrol car yesterday. Thought I'd bring you some things." "I'm okay," I said, surprised by how true it felt. She watched me for a beat, reading me more accurately than my own daughter ever had. "You look lighter." "I think I am. You did what you had to do," she said gently. I know. When she left, the silence returned less empty now, more like space finally opening up. Later that evening, just as the sun dipped low and painted the walls in gold, the phone buzzed again. Rowan's name lit the screen. I took a breath before answering. "Mom?" Her voice was quieter this time, almost childlike. No anger, no sharp edges, just uncertainty trying to steady itself. "Yes," I said. "We can fix this, can't we?" she asked. Her voice trembled not with guilt, but with the fear of losing something she thought was guaranteed. "Rowan," I said gently, "I've spent years trying to fix things. I'm done patching holes you keep tearing wider." "You don't mean that." "I do." A long silence stretched between us. I could picture her twisting a strand of hair around her finger, pacing a room, trying to find the angle that usually worked on me. "Owen says you're choosing other people over me." "No," I said. "I'm choosing myself." She inhaled sharply, as if the words stung more than she expected. "Then I guess there's nothing left to talk about." "For now," I said softly. "That's true." She hung up again, this time quietly, as though she didn't want the sound of it to echo back at her. I stared at the phone for a long while before placing it face down. I didn't feel victorious or relieved, just hollow in a way that didn't hurt, more like a cavity being cleared out so something healthier could grow there. I moved toward the window, the cool glass grounding me as the neighborhood quieted for the night. A dog barked somewhere down the street. A porch light flicked on. Someone's laughter drifted across the yard. Life felt strangely normal, even though something enormous had shifted inside me. My daughter stepped aside while I lay on the wedding floor calling her name. She had looked directly at me, saw me, and still turned away. So I turned away from the future she thought she deserved simply by existing. I didn't erase her out of cruelty. I erased her out of truth, out of the realization that a mother can love deeply and still choose distance. That boundaries aren't barriers, they're survival. The next morning, I made tea and sat on the porch. My hip still ached, but differently now, like it was healing, not just hurting. I replayed her voice in my head, the irritation, the entitlement, the fear. And then I replayed my own, steady, calm, final. Some falls shatter you. Some falls show you what you've tolerated too long. And some falls like mine teach you how to finally stand back up. For the first time in years, I wasn't the one hitting the ground. I was the one walking away. And maybe, just maybe, that was the only fall that ever saved me.